o'clock p.m. May I have a motion and a second to approve the revised agenda? Confer with labor negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. Persons wishing to address the board on closed session items may use the raise your hand Zoom feature to speak. Please reference the agenda item in your public comment and you will have 3 minutes to speak. Is there anyone to speak to these closed session items? Right. Are there any public comments from attendees joining us virtually? Right. Seeing none, we will now recess to closed session and we will return at approximately 6 o'clock p.m.
Oh, of course, of course. Excuse me, may I? Have to move some of those things there. It's like going behind somebody. Yeah, okay. Sorry. you were there.
I was absent last time, but I was in the Zoom. So I feel absent. But before that one, it was December 12th. That was on the Zoom. I'm absent on the.
Rosos. Did you do two Zoom? You did it the old one
Yeah, that one.
and then, but the one before that one,
Oh,
were you absent that one?
probably then, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, good evening. Happy 2025. Welcome to the regular board meeting of January 16th, 2025. There are many opportunities for the public to address the board, public comment, or during a specific agenda item. If you wish to speak to the board, please complete the request to speak card at the front and provide it to the recording secretary. If you are joining the meeting on Zoom, please select the raise your hand feature in order to have your name called when the agenda item is reached. In-person speakers will be called to the podium first, followed by Zoom attendees. When it is your turn to speak, you will have 3 minutes to speak. The Brown Act governs meetings of governmental bodies in California. Your comments to the board must be specific to the agenda item you are addressing. If there is no specific item, you are welcome to present comments during public comment. Please note that you are attending a public meeting of the Board of Trustees doing the public's business. This is not a public forum for public debate. Member Martinez, please provide the land acknowledgement statement.
Sure thing. Land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that Oak Grove School District in our schools occupy the unceded territory of the Milwaukee Ohlone Nation, the sovereign nation and original people of the skies, land and waters where we work and learn. The Milwaukee Ohlone people are the stewards of these lands, of the teaching and learning that comes from and responds to the needs of the land and the people who share it. May our daily lives and work, research, teaching, and community engagement support the evolving vision of the Milwaukee Ohlone for their community and these lands.
Thank you, Member Martinez. We will now move on to the flag salute, and we are actually changing things up a little bit this time. So Superintendent Chidas, can you present that?
Thank you, President Yu. I want to thank our Vice President Aber and President Yu for a great idea of saying, can we have a student do the Pledge of Allegiance? And I'm like, yes, of course, we can have a student. So thank you for already thinking differently and coming up with some great ideas, new ideas. So from now on, at every board meeting, we're going to have a student lead the Pledge of Allegiance instead of me doing it. And that's okay. I can share the Pledge of Allegiance, but we're here for students, and it's always great to have students. So today, for the very first time, our first student here to do the Pledge of Allegiance is an 8th grader from the Adventure STEM program over at Herman. And she's here today with, I believe, her family, her mom and brother, sister. And so thank you. And we have Simat Kar from Adventure Program. Come on up to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We want to take a picture with you. Is that okay? So we're going to have the board come on up. You get the very first certificate of appreciation. Well, very first, that's a collector's item.
All right. Thank you again, Simrat. You did awesome. All right, moving along to superintendent's report. Superintendent Chidas, please provide your superintendent's report.
Thank you, President Yu. Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year. It's already 2025. Wow. That's, as you think about 2025, remember 1999? It was like, what, 2000, Y2K? I just want to take this moment to wish all of our dedicated staff, students, and families a joyful and prosperous year ahead. I'm excited about the continued opportunities growth for our students, the collaboration with our teachers, our staff, and the success of our district. So thank you all for your continued hard work, or as I say, heart work, right? Because we do this with our heart, the hard work and commitment to our community. January is Board Recognition Month. So at this time, I'd like to recognize our board members and acknowledge your vital role that you play in shaping the future of our schools and our students. I also want to thank OGMA, Oak Grove Management Association. We have President Kelly Humphreys Butler here, who this evening recognized our board with the dinner. So thank you to OGMA and its members of OGMA. We really appreciate that. And as moving forward, you're going to be noticing that the decisions that we make up here at the dais as a governance team are going to have a lasting impact moving forward for years to come. Just like you came up with the idea, let's have a student do the Pledge of Allegiance. So guess what? Kira is going to remember this for the rest of her life because she's the very first to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So that's just one way that you have a lasting impact. So thank you for your service. Thank you for volunteering and for being here. So thank you. And let's give them an applause. All right. On Friday, January 10th, this past Friday, I sent out an important reminder email to all staff, which was also included in our employee insider newsletter that all of our employees get, reminding them that our schools are protected areas by federal law under the FERPA Act and State Assembly Bill AB 66699. In my email, I also provided resources on how to support families that may be concerned of just the political dynamics at the federal level, and many resources that are aligned to State Assembly Bill 699, as well as FERPA, the Federal FERPA Act. In addition, on January 2017, and if you were here, you may remember, on January 2017, at that time, the Board of Trustees, remember we talked about lasting impacts, they passed a resolution number 12460117, which is still in effect in our district. And that resolution 2017 was titled Affirming Support of Students and Families Regarding Immigration Enforcement Actions at Schools, which states that all children in the United States are entitled to equal access to public, elementary, and secondary education, regardless of their or their parents' actual or perceived national origin, citizenship, or immigration status. At our February 13th board meeting, we will present the same resolution to reaffirm our commitment to maintaining that all our schools are safe and welcoming environments for all students and families. So I want to thank President Yu, Vice President Aber, and our Board of Trustees for your support and advocacy for our students and families. I also want to thank our District Advisory Committee and Home to School Club's presidents. We had our meeting this past week on the 9th, on Thursday. And at this time, we presented an update on ethnic studies implementation district-wide. I want to thank Assistant Superintendent Anna, who made that presentation. The board also heard that presentation back in December, I believe, or November. And also our plan on artificial intelligence, also known as AI. The reality is AI is here. If you use spell check, you've been using AI for many years. Your phones, if you use GPS, remember back in the day, we used to find the yellow house and make a right where the palm tree was. Nowadays, it's all GPS, right? That's all artificial intelligence. So we received their feedback and input. So thank you to our parents from DAC and Home to School clubs. And we also shared with them the LCAP survey links. And the LCAP you're going to be hearing about, that is very important to our district because in the LCAP, which is a local control accountability plan, that is our strategic plan for our district. That's how we connect goals, actions, services for our students. So if you have ideas, you have opinions, you have thoughts, fill out the LCAP survey, click on the link, 3-4 minutes, and we really appreciate it. And we do read every single comment. I can promise you that our Educational Services Division team reads every single comment that is typed. So thank you all. Next, last week I visited STEAM at Stipe to listen and participate in a conversation about the team's exciting plans to continue transforming teaching and learning at Stipe Elementary with a STEAM focus. So always exciting to see, and they invited me, come on over, Superintendent Chaides, we want to talk about our vision over at STEAM at Stipe. So thank you to our principal and to the teachers over there. This Tuesday, we were over at Edenville Elementary School. Our executive team was present, just so that everyone knows, all the schools are visited by our executive team. We all go together, and it's a long tradition in Oak Grove that the executive team visits all school. And what we do is we bake bread, we have pastries, coffee, we speak with the teachers, the staff. It was very nice to also be in all the classrooms, see happy and engaged students. So thank you, Principal Gonzalez and the Edenville staff for that visit. And today was such an awesome day this morning. We went over to Davis Intermediate School. So I have a Superintendent Student Advisory Council. And today we met at Davis in the Wellness Center. They have a beautiful wellness center there. And we were surprisingly welcomed by their new cheerleading team. I got the chills when I got there. So the cheerleaders, about 30 cheerleaders, did like this row, and the students all walked in the middle as they were with their, it was so awesome. So thank you to the brand new cheerleading team at Davis Intermediate. Thank you to Ms. Stapleton for having your team welcome all the students. It was inspirational and excellent school pride. Thank you, Principal Kutsi, who's back there, and Assistant Principal Acosta for hosting us in your beautiful wellness center. So it's definitely a privilege to be there, but also we got to learn more about athletics and sports. We had one of our athletic Director Benson, gave us a presentation on sports. I learned a lot that we belong in a very big league. I had no idea that over 32 teams in the league. So thank you to our coaches who participate. We also were given a tour, and one exciting thing is that we were able to visit they're constructing an all-new, all-weather track with, turf, rubber track that can be used even when it rains. And all the middle schools, all the intermediate schools will get that kind of a track over the next couple of years. And last, I want to thank President Yu for joining us at this event today. And also President Yu spoke to the students about the role of the board. So briefly asked the students, so what do you know about the school board? So thank you for being there. And now, because this is why many of you are here, it's time for the Vision Awards for the maximum use of resources. I want to take this time to thank Associate Superintendent Bowles, who's going to be reading the names. I want to ask the Board of Trustees to come up to the front of the dais because we're going to take some pictures. We're going to shake hands. And then at the very end, we're going to take a big group picture with all the award winners and the board. So at this time, come on down to the front of the dais, and thank you, Associate Superintendent Bowles.
Thank you, Superintendent Chaides. So as we have Superintendent and the board members coming down, I'll read the criteria that the recipients were selected on. This is for maximum use of resources. The recipients were selected based on the following criteria: actively seeks out and creatively plans for maximum use of time and money and the effective use of human and material resources in the school and community. effectively plans and implements for the best use of resources, and provides ongoing and constructive evaluation of the use of resources and the impact of the planned use of students, the classroom, and/or the school environment. And coincidentally, we learned today that Superintendent Chidas models this maximum use of resources as he showed us his beautiful vintage desk in his office that was the desk of Leonard Herman decades back as a superintendent. So modeling the way all the way from the superintendent's office. So we're so excited to recognize these individuals for the Maximum Use of Resources Vision Award. From Anderson Elementary School, School Secretary Cindy Pinero. From Baldwin Elementary School, one-on-one instructional assistant Ola Madonnet. Also from Baldwin Elementary School, Resource Specialist Program Instructional Assistant Ellen Usico. From Burnell Intermediate School, art teacher Allison Uhas. From Christopher School, second grade teacher Maribel Fong. Also from Christopher School, second grade teacher Sochi Garcia. From Davis Intermediate School, wellness social worker Sarah Rivas. From Edenville Elementary School, lead custodian Isabel Nava. From Educational Services, Executive Secretary Ale Alvarez. From Frost Elementary, first grade teacher Rebecca Munson. From Human Resources, Executive Confidential Secretary Donna Taniguchi. And from Ledesma School, I see that she has joined online, so let's see if we can give a really big round of applause for Resource Specialist Program Teacher Christine Bourbons. From Oak Ridge Elementary School, Home and School Club Board Member Erin Eklund. Also from Oak Ridge Elementary School, fifth grade teacher Brenna Jewell. From Santa Teresa Elementary School, library clerk Dina Mansway. And lastly, from STEAM at Stipe Elementary, literacy support provider Celestina Olivas. All right, if we can ask all of our present Vision Award winners to come up for a group picture, please join us. We have our public information officer, Sheetal Singh, capturing photos, so sure you'll see some highlights on social media this evening. Yeah. All right, let's give one big round of applause for all of our recipients.
Family that wants to take photos. You can come on up if you'd like to take a photo.
Thank you for all of your efforts in maximizing resources for Oak Grove School District. Thank you.
We'll be taking a 5-minute intermission for pictures. Thank you. Okay, we can resume. Okay, thank you all. That was always, it's always nice to see our families, and also our employees. So at this time, President Yu, that concludes my superintendent's report. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Chaitis. Let's move on to closed session items. So the board did meet in closed session to discuss public employee performance evaluation, superintendent, and no action was taken. Consideration of public employee discipline, release dismissal, Government Code Section 54957, and no action was taken. And confer with labor negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6, and no action was taken. We can now move on to public comment. So this is an opportunity for individuals to address the board on any school-related issue, which is not a part of this evening's agenda. Are there any individuals who wish to speak to the board at this time? So we have Jorge Prado. Please come to the podium.
Good evening, Madam President, board members. First of all, thank you so much for volunteering. That seems my time's up. Thank you so much. Oh, no, I know the rules. I hope so. Welcome again. Thank you for volunteering. It's going to be an interesting ride together. Board members, Happy New Year to everyone and all those things. We do not see people as they are, but as they appear to us. And these appearances are usually misleading. That's on the words of the US writer, Robert Greene. Mr. Chaides, thanks so much for sending all those reminders, because that's exactly what I'm coming to talk about. Previous board, I'm still honored that they allowed me to be part of the resolution 1378-025 on denouncing the hate crimes against the Latino community and a call to end the separation of children from their families, unjust immigration practices, and generational trauma. And we faced that 8 years ago. Here we are again. And we are doing, as previous board, as district, all that we're trying to support. I just want to encourage all my colleagues, the board, the executive team, to remember one thing. We are here in this building, in this position, in this job, as they said, to help and fulfill the mission of this district, that every single child, student, achieve their potential. So I want to remind every single one of us that regardless of our own personal political views, regardless that the party we support, regardless what we think about one or the other, I think the most important thing is our children, and that they fulfill that achievement, that they can reach their dreams. A lot of us came to this country with a dream. Every single one of us ancestors came with a dream. Every single one was looking for a better opportunity. So please don't keep track on that. Regardless why we're here, how we came, what legal or unlegal status or perspective of whoever is going to be in the White House, we please needs to be just centered in one thing: help our children to achieve what their parents have as a dream, to make that dream come true. I know it's hard. I know it's not easy. I know political things are hard, and I'm going to take a tiny little bit more than that, 13 seconds, if it's okay with you. I promise I will be fast. But I urge you that keep that in mind, because my people, Mexican Americans, the Latinos in this country since 1836, and then more strongly since 1847, in the so-called Mexican American War, which was an invasion to my country, we Mexican Americans have been systematically denied the opportunity to grow. I know we have a board that has that rhythm and has success in that, but we need your support to every single Mexican American Latino that is in a district achieve that. Sorry for the extra 30 seconds. Have a good night. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Prado. Do we have any other speakers for public comment? None online either? Okay. All right. Let's move on to bargaining unit comment. Do we have any reports from bargaining unit representatives? Go ahead.
Good evening. My name's Chuck Baylot, CSCA Chapter President, and I don't really have any updates or announcements tonight. I just mostly came up here so the new board members can see my face, hear my name. So I just want to welcome you, Vice President Aber, is that how I say it? Aber and Member Torres. Welcome to the board. I look forward to talking and working with you in the future. And that's pretty much all I have tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baylor. We look forward to working further with you as well as CSEA. Do we have any comment from OGEA? Okay. All right. It's okay. All right, let's move on to consent agenda. So Superintendent Chidas, please present the consent agenda.
Thank you, President Yu. At this time, it is recommended that the Board of Trustees approve the consent agenda as presented.
Motion to approve?
Can I get a second?
Second.
Any public comments in person or online? Right. Any board discussion? Okay, seeing none, may we please get a roll call vote?
Member Martinez,
Aye.
Member Torres, Vice. Minutes for the 12th?
For the entire.
So the minutes for the 12th. And then the meeting minutes for the 17th.
So it's all items under section 5, which is the
Correct.
consent agenda.
I abstain. Vice President Aber,
Aye.
President Yu,
Aye.
motion carries.
Okay, let's move on to action item 6.1, trustee vacancy area 3. Superintendent Chidas, can you please present this item?
Yes, thank you, President Yu. This is an action item. As you know, trustee Jorge Pacheco Jr. Submitted his resignation effective December 18th, as he is now serving on the Santa Clara County Board of Trustees. And at this time, we are bringing this item in a recommendation that the board affirm the process for a provisional appointment and appoint a board vacancy subcommittee. The 2 board member subcommittee will be responsible for validating applicants who are eligible to serve on the board, create a detailed information sheet to be completed by eligible candidates, and finalize the interview questions and process for the interviews of the board candidates. And this is an action item. At this time, President Yu, if you would like to ask for volunteers for the subcommittee or appoint 2 board members on the subcommittee that will work with myself.
So at this time, I will ask for any volunteers. So if there are any current board members who are interested in leading this charge, please speak up.
I'm interested again.
All right, so we have member Martinez and member Salazar. Torres, thank you. I'm so sorry, member Salazar Torres. That works for me. Does that work for you? Okay. All right, can I get a motion in a second?
Motion to appoint the volunteers, trustee Martinez and trustee Torres, to the subcommittee
Second.
and affirm the provisional appointment.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any public comments in person or online? Seeing none, any board discussion? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Member Martinez,
Aye.
Member Torres.
Aye.
Vice President Aber,
Aye.
President Yu,
Aye.
motion carries.
Okay, the next three items. So school improvement, the next three items are school improvement action items, which we are going to be bundling together. Can I have Associate Superintendent Evans please present these three action items?
Yes, thank you, President Yu. I wanted to present first item 6.2. This item is to engage Block Construction as our general contractor on the modernization at Christopher Elementary. Through a competitive request for proposals, the district received 4 leaseback proposals for a general contractor to lead this project. The project is estimated to cost about $6.6 million. Once we receive full approval from the Division of the State Architect for the plans and the specifications, Block will competitively bid out the entire project and will bring back the final cost for approval of that contract at that time. Based on the final score, the district is recommending Block Construction to be awarded the Christopher Modernization leaseback, and it's recommended the board award this leaseback contract for Christopher Modernization to Block Construction. The second item 6.3, is very parallel to the previous. It's the recommendation to award the Stipe modernization to Block Construction also. We will again engage them as our general contractor. The process was the same. We had a competitive bid process, and we also had 4 leaseback proposals. And the project here at Stipe is estimated to cost about $7.6 million. And once we get the final drawings and construction drawings all approved by the Division of the State Architect, it'll go out to bid, and we'll bring that back to you for the final pricing based on the bids. And because of Block's proposal and their both experience as well as their overhead costs, they won the competition, and we are recommending them to be the leaseback provider at Stipe Elementary. And then lastly, the third item, also related to our bond improvements, is a request for approval of new cubicle furniture for the Educational Services and Special Education Department. We're currently undergoing renovation of the district office with upgraded HVAC systems and a new roof. And we are rotating through the building, doing it in phases. While we're emptying sections of the building, we're taking that opportunity to do other improvements like carpet and paint, since it's already being emptied. And part of that will give us efficiencies in doing that work, so we don't have to move people in the future. The cubicle replacement is part of that efficiency. So we're recommending approval of the contract to purchase the cubicles for ed services and special education. Any questions I can answer?
So just for the record, and this isn't based off of any incident, just previous experience working with different construction firms. How do we ensure that the contractor meets all of the state labor standards?
They have to submit their labor reports to the Division of Industrial Relations so that they can confirm that we are a prevailing wage project.
Fabulous. And then my second question is, how do we track compliance for their subcontractors?
They do that as well, because the subcontractors have to submit all of that as well. So it all kind of, and Block as our general will oversee all of that work.
And so we review any wage theft issues if they were to arise. Does that come to us, or is that?
That usually goes to the Department of Industrial Relations. So,
Okay, to the DIR.
yeah, I've never dealt directly on that front.
But it's something we review when we do our due diligence as we're.
Yes, it's all part of the contract and part of the bid documents with any of our projects, not just at this scale, but anything over a certain dollar amount is prevailing wage, and we go through those policies and processes.
Okay, thank you.
I just had one question, and it was more about like the best value ranking on that bid comparison. Can you just provide clarity around what criteria that entails?
Actually, our Chief Operation Officer, who's here to work with us on the bond presentation, can speak to that. But it is a combination of their experience, their price. Again, we don't have a number, but their percentage of overhead, and all of those are the factors that we bring into play. And there's a ranking system and a rubric. So do you have any additional details to add, Mr. Altamirano? Yes.
Hello, everyone. Board of Trustees, Superintendent Dr. Tritus. My name is Gabriel Altamirano. I'm the Chief Operations Officer, and I oversee facilities maintenance, operation, transportation, and capital improvement. In regards to your question regarding criteria, all our documents are from our legal team in rating all of the proposals that were received. We rate them on their financial stability, their cash flow, their amount of debt, their bonding capacity, their experience for large scales that are for these particular projects that were greater than $4.5 million, the number of projects within the past 4 years, and then ultimately the fee, as is how much of their overhead and profit and fee will be charged to the overall project cost. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for providing that clarification. All right, are there any other questions from the board members? Okay,
Just curious, as you modernize these new projects, is there any use for the old equipment, or is it just tossed away, or is it talking about maximizing resources?
Like, well, yeah, and like furniture and all, or things like that. Actually, one of the things Mr. Altamirano is looking at is donating furniture to places in other countries or services that transport them. And we'll provide them to schools and other locations that might need them. After the fires in Los Angeles County, that might actually be a more local need. So if there are schools that need the desks that we're no longer using, we may see what availability or need is down south. So we do look to see if we can repurpose some of the things that still have usable life in them.
Well, keep us
That's right.
updated on that.
all right, at this time, can I get a motion and a second on all 3 action items?
Motion to approve 6.2, 6.3, and 6.4.
I'll go ahead and second that. Do we have any public comments in person or online? Any further board discussion? All right, roll call vote, please.
Member Martinez,
Aye.
Member Torres, Vice President Aubert.
Aye.
President Yu,
Aye.
motion carries.
Okay, that takes us to action item 6.5, resolution 1493-0125, board member absent. Superintendent Chaitis, can you please present this item?
Thank you, President Yu. This is an action item pursuant to California Education Code, Section 35120C. A resolution needs to be approved entitling a board member to be paid for any meeting when absent due to illness, emergency, hardship deemed acceptable by the board. As required by Ed Code, this resolution is presented for board consideration for the absence of trustee Diego Martinez at the December 12th, 2024 regular board meeting. At this time, it's for action for a vote.
May I have a motion and a second?
Motion to approve 6.5.
I'll go ahead and second it. Any public comments in person or online? Okay, any board discussion? All right, roll call vote, please.
Member Martinez,
Abstain?
Member Torres,
Abstain?
Vice President Aubert,
Aye.
President Yu,
Aye.
motion fails.
Motion fails.
Clarification, does trustee Martinez have to abstain by? He does. Okay.
For discussion? Would that be okay?
Like, do we get another motion?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it failed.
That takes us to information items. So information item 7.1, bond measure P, projects and planning update. Associate Superintendent Evans, can you please present this item?
Yes, thank you, President Yu. This evening, we'd like to kind of share with you the bond projects and planning update and our kind of outlook for what we see for the Measure P project over the life of the bond. We've been working on this and developing it, getting as much information as we can to put together our plan. we will do our best to follow through, but we will also have to kind of adjust and modify as time goes on. And we'll talk about some of those things as we go through the presentation tonight. I'll introduce my co-presenter, which I think has already been done, actually. Chief Operations Officer Gabe Altamirano, and I'll have, if you wouldn't mind working from the podium, I'll work from here and kind of go through the presentation and share with you kind of what we'll be going over this evening on the next slide, the kind of 4 topics we'll be discussing. We can go to the next slide, please. Bond language, we'll kind of go into what, the original bond language was about and what it said we were going to do. Our standards that we've set up for modernization, and that's part of what we've been working on since the bond passed as well. Prioritizing and the timeline for the next basically 7 or 8 years as we implement the bond program, and the budget and how we're dispersing those funds across the district. So on the bond objectives on the next slide, these are largely built out of the resolution that the board passed back in the summer of 2022 to go out for a bond, which the voters and the community successfully supported. And we have $236 million to achieve as many of these goals as we can. There are 8 primary bond objectives. The primary focus for Measure P, this bond, is on really the learning environments, the classroom spaces. Our previous bond, Measure S, addressed many infrastructure issues, HVAC, roofing, things like that, streetscape. There's still some work in those areas to do, such as the district office here, but the primary focus was really meant to modernize the learning spaces. Classroom upgrades and technology upgrades were a major focus, and that includes the furnishings, which we just spoke about with maximum use of resources. Instruction and learning also takes place outside the classroom. So with the fields, redoing blacktops and play areas and playgrounds. And also safety and security was a top priority when we interviewed the community about how they wanted the bond fund spent. And then additionally, every time we do a project, we also have to bring things up to code compliance. So those relate to accessibility issues, bathroom upgrades for wheelchair access or ramps, but also Title 24 energy efficiency standards too. So those are some of the things that fall under the compliance area. Are there any questions about kind of what our bond objectives are? Okay. Then let me switch over to the modernization standards, and this Mr. Altamirano has been working on diligently as he has been doing not just on the operations front, but also the instructional front with Ed Services to kind of set up what those learning environments are going to be like. So if you want to take it away.
Thank you, Associate Superintendent Evans. Good evening again. So my role is to take those 8 bond objectives and transfer that into actionable items that our design team can systematically implement across the district for all our projects. We see this bond as a great rejuvenation of our school sites and really leveling up every school site, the entire classroom environment, really. So from a renovated interiors, we're discussing, I'm sorry, do you want to do next slide, please? Renovated classroom interiors from new flooring, new cabinetry, new finishes, lighting. Technology will have a tremendous amount of upgrade, not only on what we see inside the classroom with interactive panels, listening devices, audio system enhancement, but also on the back end with new network switches, new uninterrupted power supplies for the network, as well as some more safety components, such as new clock bell speakers that are currently being rolled out now. The clock bell speakers can display emergency notification, which is great, which ties into safety and security. So access control system, cameras, fire alarm system. And then the big push is furniture, as we'll present on that shortly. On the behind the house, so to say, we'll have a large HVAC and building infrastructure improvement. Outdoor learning, to Mr. Evans' comments earlier, improving the outdoor learning environment and outdoor classroom environment, such as the athletic fields. Overall, some site improvements, some very exciting landscape improvements and exterior painting to really brand our school sites as Oak Grove. Next slide, please. So the next topic is the priority and timeline. Mr. Evans will kind of explain how we develop the timeline?
Yeah, the priority and timeline has to be developed because the $236 million that was approved doesn't all arrive at once. Because we have to have a certain amount of assessed evaluation in our property values, we can only issue so many bonds at a time. So the plan is to have 3 issuances of bonds, about a third each of the $236 million. One we issued a year ago. The next one we're anticipating probably 25, 26. And then another one a couple years after that. So basically, this first one that we did was $65 million, and the next 2 will be about $80 million each. Before we can issue, we have to make sure that we have enough property growth and assessed value to actually issue that amount or issue a lesser amount and save more for later. So we kind of look at that, and that sets up our cash flow and what projects can we do with the money that's available to us now. That's a big part of the planning. The other thing that we look at is the need. Not all sites are in the same state of repair and need. So while the classroom remodeling might be very consistent as far as the amount it costs to do that, there might be other infrastructure issues, and I'll share that when we get into the budget because you'll see some numbers are higher than others. And then lastly, state matching funds. The state just passed a school bond, a $10 billion school bond. That's for K-14. So TK-12 will get about $8.5 billion eligibility. We received state matching funds in the early 2000s, and schools are eligible every 25 years. So many of our schools won't be eligible for a couple more years, 2 to 3 more years. Some are eligible now. So we want to be strategic because if we do the work too soon, we aren't eligible to get some of those matching funds, which can expand and improve the Measure P dollars because we have eligibility at this point of more than $8 million in state matching funds. I think it's actually north of 10 at this point in time. So that will help us put money towards other projects or offset some of the costs at a school site that's getting modernized with some state money in addition to our own money. So those are the factors we put into play. And there's also just the fact that there's only so many schools we can do at one time. That has to do both with cash flow, it has to do with just disruption, and it has to do with manpower and ability to find that many contractors. The state passed their state bond last November, but there were quite a few other school districts who also passed bonds. So the demand for construction will continue to be strong. We're in a good position that we can be starting these projects now where those who just passed a bond will have a little more lead time in ramping up. So we'll be getting some work going this summer. I'm going to have Mr. Altamirano speak about the time flow of getting a project ready for construction because the timelines you're going to see are really about construction, correct? Not the design. And that's a whole nother phase that we have to plan for. So the next slide will kind of speak to the whole process from engaging an architect to actually finishing the project. And I'll let him, Mr. Altamirano, speak to that. And then you can go through all the timeline year by year. So thank you.
So the timeline, depending on the project, we start in February, maybe even November previous year. Well, how does Anderson look? How does the floor look? What's the condition of the school? Based off our timeline, is it still the highest priority? Is the modernization matching dollars still the same as what we originally planned? So in February and October, that's where we really start engaging with the school site. Hey, we're thinking about going to your school site. What are the really surface level needs? What do you want to improve for the learning environment, for your campus, for your library? Then we kind of take those conceptual ideas and let's transfer it over to our architect and our design team. They start planning, they start walking the spaces, taking pictures, documenting the existing conditions. And then it kind of just keeps the ball rolling and rolling. We engage the Board of Trustees to review proposals for the design cost, the estimated cost of the project. And then we start getting into the construction drawings and the specifications. And then we get into the nitty gritty details as best as possible. So that we can present to the Division of State Architects, DSA. They will review fire life safety as their primary review, but they'll also review structural. They'll review mechanical, plumbing, and the site improvements of what we're doing, what we're trying to do. There's also a threshold in which how much we should do or can do per site. And then we come back to the site and we say, okay, here's the conceptual idea. Here are the plans. What do you like about it? Do we miss the mark? Do you really need 20 feet of cabinets, or maybe you only need 10 feet of cabinets or 5 feet of cabinets now. And so that's when we kind of come back to the site and get some more information. In April and June, that's when we would like to go to a bidding and pre-construction phase. It takes about 4 to 8 weeks to bid it, and that includes public notice and in notifying all the trades and the contractors of this upcoming project. Once we receive the bids, we evaluate them to make sure we're awarding to the most responsible and responsible contractor to perform the work. And then we take it to the Board of Trustees for approval. And that's when the roller coaster starts of construction and relocating classrooms, with most often our modernization is looking like a 2-year process. So year one, we'll kind of segment the campus, which areas are the biggest priority. Most often it's a TK and kinder. And then we kind of move the site around. Where can we put temporary fencing? How can we continue construction and still maintain a safe learning environment for students? And then it's looking like year 2, that's when we finish up the following summer, wrap up all the final details, and come October, we hopefully close the budget on the project, and then we'll present the final ribbon cutting and celebration of a completed project. If you go to the next slide, please. So here's the timeline for the major modernization projects. And so the current one is 2024. As you can kind of see, we wrapped up a Christopher restroom modernization project, Baldwin HVAC and roofing. Davison Track and Field is currently in progress, and we just started the DO HVAC and roofing project. Next slide, please. We're already looking forward to summer 25 as thank you to the Board of Trustees for approving the upcoming modernization project, the leasebacks for Herman Modernization Stipe, as well as Christopher. We are also looking forward to the Burnell Track and Field for next year. We do have school sites that are further down the line in regards to the timeline. We do want to offer them, offer them some improvements, and no need for them to wait year 5, 6 for a simple blacktop replacement. And so that's what we're trying to improve all our sites. That makes the most sense, and we're not going to be demolishing that sidewalk in the future or having to redo any of the work. If you go next slide to 26, please. So at 26, we're hopefully wrapping up the Christopher Stipe and Herman modernization come August. And starting June, that's gonna be the next 3 school sites that we hope to modernize with Baldwin, Ledesma, and Davis. And again, Sakamoto Flooring and Furniture, Frost Indigo Flooring and Furniture, Anderson Blacktop, and Hayes Restroom Modernization. Next slide, please. So the process and the pattern kind of continues, as you can tell. Again, we're estimating each school site to take roughly about 2 years to complete. So this shows the next few sites that we're hoping to start with: Burnell, Parkview, Oak Ridge. And I apologize, there's a typo. Sakamoto Restroom Modernization. We're not making a grand restroom. It's just going to be a 3-month project. So I apologize for that typo. Summer 28, again, wrapping up the previous years. And then that summer, we're going to be starting Edenville, Hayes, and Del Roble. Frost Indigo Restroom Modernization. Frost Indigo is a unique site, and we've had a lot of work done there. But that may be an opportunity for possibly new development, as we're still kind of exploring that. Summer 29 or 2029, again, wrapping up the previous 3, getting ready to start Taylor, Sakamoto, and the Frost Indigo modernization. Finally, we're estimating the project to conclude in 2031, with 2030, Santa Teresa and Anderson, and then wrapping up 2031 with the completion of Santa Teresa and Anderson. Along the way, we will have various projects that impact all the school sites. Painting is an easy one that we can do multiple sites every year and kind of upgrade all of our sites. Clock bell speakers is a big push from our Safety and Security Committee, as well as electronic locks. Network upgrades, depending on the infrastructure, we may do that ahead of the modernization or in parallel with the modernization. And I'll pass
Yeah.
to.
So let's talk budget, and maximum use of resources seems to be the theme tonight. If you go to the next slide, we'll kind of show a bar graph of the distribution of the funds across learning communities. You'll see Bernal has a larger amount, and I'll speak to that on the next slide when we break it down. That's one of the sites that needs a lot more upgrading and some door work and stuff like that. So I'll come back to that. Davis Learning Community coming in about 58 million, Herman Learning Community at 47, and district-wide projects at 47 million. District-wide projects isn't the district office. It's actually the things that we're setting aside for across the district. Each time we issue bonds, about 5 million is meant for technology. That could be technology infrastructure, that can be replacement of Chromebooks, things that have even a 5-year lifespan. So 15 million of that district-wide projects is going to be technology related. We also are setting aside funds. We have properties that are not occupied by our students, but are leased. And if things go down there, those are potential expenses to maintain those buildings on infrastructure. We won't be doing so much improvements, but maintenance things. So we've set aside dollars there. And the other expense that you run into when it takes 2 years to remodel a school is interim housing. So we put about $8 million in the budget for interim housing. We're fortunate that we have a lot of portables that are not being used, so we may not incur that much, but we want to have that set aside. And lastly, we put aside a contingency of about $16.5 million just to allow for those things that come up that weren't expected, to allow for some inflation that's coming along, and just the program management and operations of the bond as well. If you go to the next slide, it breaks it down a little more visually by learning communities. And here, I think I'm going to talk about the Bernal Learning Community. You'll see that Baldwin is substantially more expensive. And I think it's like all the door frames that are rusting and all that, we have to actually go in and replace the door frames and the lights that exit the room. Those are all metal framed and they have weathered badly and are rusting and stuff. So those are the things that are driving up the cost at Baldwin to be more substantial. Davis Learning Community is probably spot on what a typical one would be if it weren't for the extra costs at Baldwin. And then Herman Learning Community actually has one less school, so that's why their numbers are a little bit lower. And then you'll see the contingency there and the district-wide projects. So that's how we're looking to attack the bond for till 2031, which sounds like a long ways off, but it is going to be flying by. And we'll keep you posted as well on what our outlook is for the next issuance. We also have to be careful because when you issue a bond, you are supposed to spend those dollars within a few years. You're not supposed to just sit on them. And so we're getting that rolling. And I think we'll be burning through a lot of our first bond this summer as we get all those modernizations going. So at this point, if you have any questions or follow-up for us to respond to, happy to take those.
We also presented we also have a visual board if you want to look at it or have any questions. Just show some of the standards finishes that we're looking forward to.
Thank you.
I just have one silly question regarding the interim housing, so things like the portables out here. I'm just curious, are they like purchased? Are they leased? And then what happens to them after we're done with them?
Yeah, in my experience in other districts, they're usually leased. They're rented for a period of time, or in my previous district, we actually were building where the portables were. So we just moved the portables to a new location and reused our portables. So we just paid the interim housing cost was the movement of them, not necessarily the leasing of them. So, but that's a very good example. What's in the parking lot here while we do this project is very much what we would do. We would lease spaces. They would be like our portables that are on the campus currently, in the 960 square foot portable classrooms. And again, I know at many of our sites, it may not even be an issue because we do have space available and we might be able to just use the existing empty rooms.
Real quick, on the timing, so when we figure out when we're going to issue it, we also think about the market, right? And because that's volatile, and I know that some bonds aren't quite the hot item they were at one point.
Yes, and we look at what our capacity is because interest rates go up, our capacity goes down. And when we issued a year ago, we hit a very sweet spot. And some of that, I can't take credit. Some of it is just luck. I will share another issuance I was involved with at my previous district was in March of 2020 and everything went sideways. So we just stopped it and had to come back later. So we do monitor the market. We work with underwriters to kind of also give us an idea of how do we structure them to make them appealing and to various institutions or individuals or things like that. So, that's a big part of it, is trying to optimize the amount we're getting. And one of the reasons we went for the bond is because we had bonds falling off. So while we can't promise, our goal was to kind of keep the actual number you're paying on your property tax for our residents the same, even though we're increasing capacity. We're extending the life, but we're not increasing capacity. So we're trying to be conscious of that as we do it as well.
Absolutely. The other thing that is related to, do we ever refinance our debt that we have?
Yes, we've done that several times.
As we start to see the interest rates creep down?
Right. That is not as easy to do after the last tax law, federal tax law. It's not as easy to do. You can reissue it as taxable bonds rather than non-taxable. And a lot of institutions want, and individuals want tax-free bonds just for income reasons. So yeah, that has been done in the past. It's not as common now because of the new tax law.
Thank you.
Regarding input, so once a plan is presented to a school site, I'm just curious, who is able to provide input? Like, is it just the instructional or the school site staff? Do we involve students? Do we involve the community? How does that process work?
The process starts back when we had a steering committee, really kind of forming what do we want to do with the interiors. And that was to go with more of a mobile classroom, no longer having a front of the classroom. What type of finishes do we want on the walls, tackable, writable surfaces? So we've taken that steering committee and those ideas from teachers, educators, students, and that kind of helped form the scope of work of modernization. As we get to a school site, we first start off with the site administrator. Here's what we're thinking in regards to your site. Here are some of the finishes from the steering committee, what we want to do with this space. And then we get their input. Well, I use this classroom in a certain way. This needs to change. Or we have a science classroom and it's on carpet. We really need to change that out. So we take those preliminary ideas so then we could present back to perhaps the principal and their leadership team. So at Christopher, we've done that. We presented to the leadership team. Here are the ideas. Do we catch it? Do we get it 100%? Where are we missing the mark? And then we go back and review again. Finally, once we get a pretty fine, clean process or design, we come back to the staff and we have most likely an optional staff meeting for them to come in. We'll provide a rendering for them. We'll walk through the interior elevations of when you walk in your classroom, you'll walk into abrasive action. You'll have our new carpet. You'll see tackable walls to your left. We'll have new roller shades on the windows. And we kind of walk them through as best we can, because it can be hard to see the plans on a paper versus, talking through it. And so at that point, again, we get a little bit more information. Right now, this afternoon, we went to Herman Adventure and we met for an hour with the Makerspace teacher there. And again, she walked me through, this is how I use my classroom. This is what I really need. Tack wall is great, but I'm going to put shelves all over this wall. I need shelves. So no tackable, let's just put shelves and let's move some things around. So it's a good process. I enjoy it thoroughly. And again, we really want to level up each site. So it's functional and it's long lasting.
One final question. I was actually, I lived across from Taylor when they did major construction. How do we intake from the community when they have issues with the construction, something's not going right?
Usually my name's on the sign that says, these are Measure P bond funds at work. If any questions, call Mark. So yeah, there's usually a contact point on those.
Most often the school site will be the first one to hear it. And so school site secretaries or principals will forward those comments and concerns to me. And my team, and we'll evaluate, we'll talk with the community member, hear their concerns. Most often it's noise. Projects will run late as the summer is so finite. And so Saturday work will be included. And so communicate that in advance. We've done that in the past and we've tried to continue to do that. But we'll take those concerns and see how we can best remedy it. And some contractors or subcontractors are eager to work on Saturday, and that's great, but no noise before 7. And so we'll reiterate those things.
Yeah, we do follow those guidelines of work hours and all. This bond project doesn't have a lot of major construction or new construction, so like, you know, putting in foundations and packing soil and stuff, which is a lot of the very noisy, disruptive vibration. We'll probably see very little of that, but contacting the school side or whatever would be their first line.
Oh, thank you.
All right, great. Thank you, Mark and Gabriel, for the presentation. I really appreciated the clear communication around the budget as well, so that we know where the dollars are going. So it's exciting to see Measure P dollars at work. I'm excited to see, you know, all the modernizations that are going to happen now and into the future. My daughter was very excited when she saw those clock speaker bells. She came home one day and she's like, "Mommy, we have new clocks." And I'm like, okay. But I saw them, they're very cool. And it was exciting to see, you know, the Davis track and field getting updated too. So thank you for your work around that. Do we have any public comments in person or online? Okay, any further board discussion? All right, thank you for the presentation. Let's move on to information item 7.2, classroom modernization furniture pilot results. Assistant Superintendent Enna, would you please present this item?
Okay, thank you, President Yu. We'll get the presentation up. Cecily, if you don't mind presenting the slides. Yeah, thank you. And I will be co-presenting again with our COO, Gabe Altamirano. And I also want to acknowledge the collaborative team that came together to work on this particular process of selecting furniture and what the classrooms will look like. So not just MOT, but the EdTech team, Steve Harmon, Bruce Neff, and Sergio Rizzi. Also purchasing, Ruth Martin and Annie Bader play a big part in this, and our district bond project manager, Bernice Jimenez. Also want to acknowledge the team of teachers who opened up their classrooms to pilot furniture options, as well as all of the teachers and staff in the district who took time to provide feedback and evaluation of the options. So that's what we're here to present to you today. Reporting the results of the process, the input process, as you were speaking about, President Yu, to select the classroom furniture and exactly what the classrooms will look like. So next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, so what we'll be going over tonight is just reviewing, Associate Superintendent Evans reviewed the modernization, the Measure P, specifically the goals. We'll just review those in terms of the furniture, talk in detail about the furniture pilot, the process for that, review the survey data from the teachers and staff, and understand how that data applied to just establishing a baseline for typical classroom spaces as well as non-typical classrooms and learning spaces on campus. And then we'll talk a little bit about the pilot furniture and AV cost comparison. Just a side note that tonight's presentation is focusing strictly on our furniture and the material items in the classroom, but the audio-visual recommendations or selection will be coming to the next board meeting. So we just took a little bit longer, a little bit more time with the AV upgrades. And then finally, we'll talk a little bit about the next steps. Next slide. Okay, so just to review, the main objective of this Measure P bond is to modernize our learning spaces, including furniture and technology and safety features and other environments like science labs and music rooms so that teachers and students have access to modern technology and equipment to upgrade the environment. And thank you. So just an overview of the furniture pilot program. Unlike a curriculum pilot, for example, in the situation of a curriculum pilot, we would narrow down to a couple of choices, have a variety of teachers try out to teach both options, and then they would weigh in. Here, there are so many different options. We wanted to collect, broader input and try out more things. So it was a little bit different. And we'll talk a little bit about the broad-based input and the survey that we sent out to all staff. We did that a few times in the process. Aside from getting survey data, we also established a task force. So the task force was really the design of that was to have a variety of perspectives in the room, to look at survey data and synthesize and analyze the feedback and narrow down the options. So the initial survey was really designed to understand, what do people want? What do people not want in terms of furniture, in terms of the look and feel of their space? And then we selected pilot classrooms. It was an application process, and it was really based on a rubric. So we wanted to have a variety of perspectives from and representation from our learning communities and from different grade levels, but we also took into consideration experience and participation in other districts, leadership roles, such as being a tech mentor or being on the Measure P task force. And then those pilot classrooms were over the summer given the upgrade, and teachers were able to use that experience of having their hands on it, having students in the seats, using the desks. And then we evaluated the pilot furniture, getting more broad-based input. And I'll go into that in the next couple of slides. So our task force team, and there's a photo of one of the processes that we had here in the boardroom. We really was focusing on what is that high level standard that we want for teaching and learning spaces. And from there, determining what the standard was, then we would select furniture options that met that standard. So the parameters were really to focus on 21st century skills and the 4 C's. The students could be creative, have communication, critical thinking, and collaboration, all within the learning space. So from there, as I said, we went through a process of selection for the pilot classrooms. We had a 5th and 6th grade at Edenvale, kindergarten classroom at Stipe, 5th grade at Oak Ridge, 1st grade at Sakamoto, a preschool classroom at Baldwin, 4th grade at Taylor, the 7th and 8th grade class at Davis. And then we had the Oak Ridge Library, a Bernal Advisory Classroom, and Anderson Library. Just want to thank again our pilot teachers who committed their classroom space to test out, a wide variety of furniture types and options from different vendors. So we'll now review the survey data and how this information helped to create our baseline recommendations for further modernization. And before I pass it off to Mr. Altamirano, I just want to say that not only did the teachers who piloted the furniture in their classrooms, well, not only were they able to weigh in on the evaluation process, but we also opened up their classrooms to everyone in the district. We had open houses, if you will, in their classroom sites. In some cases, we had vendor representatives come out to speak to either furniture or AV, give a little bit of a demo. And then we also, on our November 1st Professional Development Day, we brought sample furniture into the Herman Library. That Professional Development Day was where most of our teachers were trained on the math curriculum. And so they were able to, on their way in or way out, if they didn't have a pilot classroom or if they didn't have one on their campus, they were able to really get their hands on it, see it in real life. So there were lots of options. We also sent out several communications. We created like one-page spec sheets that had testimonials for each vendor, for each furniture type. We had testimonials from the pilot classroom teachers. We had a list of a link for photos and videos. And so if they weren't able to see it in person, there were other ways that they could see it. And then we got additional feedback. So Gabriel Altamirano is going to be sharing the results of the feedback that we got from the broader base of our teachers and staff.
Thank you, Superintendent Enna, and good evening again, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Dr. Chaitis. Furniture modernization impacts so much of the daily environment, the day-to-day from your teachers and students and interactions. And so we knew our decision had to be data-driven. And so to Superintendent Enna's point, we have pilot teachers, we have open houses, we've brought in a showcase of furniture to our PD, really to grab as much feedback as possible. And then we sent out a presentation, then we sent out reminders, and we said, get your vote in now, let's fill out your survey. And so from that survey, we were able to capture 185 completed surveys. And it kind of breaks it down as to, well, who completed the survey? So we had 62 surveys from those who viewed the furniture at the PD day. Again, we kind of grabbed chairs and desks from each of the different vendors from each of the communities and kind of showcased them throughout. And so you could sit on them, you could roll them around, you could flip them upside down, you could really live with the furniture and nope, this is gonna break, or oh, I really like this, but I hate the color, that sort of thing. Of the 185, 33 surveys, they reviewed our furniture presentation, so that was helpful. 67 visited a pilot classroom, and 9 of our esteemed pilot classrooms who really endured, okay, we're removing out all your furniture during spring break and we're gonna put all new, you have to live with it, you're gonna be okay. And they were just super, super accommodating and very understanding as they came back from summer with brand new furniture. And again, it's a pilot, so some stuff worked and some stuff didn't work. But again, I appreciate their willingness to try. So next slide, please. So with the different groups who responded in the survey, we wanted to weigh their response. The pilot teachers, again, they really lived with this furniture for 3 months or more. And so we wanted to kind of put a slightly heavier weight on their responses. Same thing if you viewed the furniture, if you sat in a chair, if you pushed a desk around, we put a little more weight on them as well. So with the help of the EdTech team, we put a point system for all the survey responders. A 0 would be they strongly dislike the item. A 2.01, there's a slight favor of that item or a slight favor of that design. And a 4 would be they strongly like it, get this in our rooms no matter what. And so from the surveys, we kind of took that information again and well, what are the categories here we're looking at? And so student furniture, desk and chairs, instructor furniture, their desk, as well as workstations, and then classroom furniture, such as storage, big storage, bookshelves, and calming corner. Next slide. So on the macro level, when we looked at all of the data that came back, we started piecing it together. Well, okay, well, what does everyone like first and foremost? And so it's easy to say, yes, desks to have mobile wheels, perfect. Yes, desks to have some backpack hooks or backpack storage options. No, staff dislike the organic shaped desks. And so we went through it as a macro level. It was helpful. It kind of guided us. But then we thought about, well, if I'm in 8th grade, my needs are a little bit different than a kindergarten or a TK. And so next slide, please. So then we started looking at to fine tune it. I'm sorry, I'm a little ahead of myself. So the macro level again, classroom furniture of what works, kidney table, classroom, a calming corner in every classroom was very important. So again, on the entire scale across the district, these are some of the biggest, most important items for furniture. So again, we took that information, we put it down to the micro level. And so if we go to the next slide, please. Next slide. We formed, well, TK through first, what do they like? What type of desk do they want? They like desks with wheels. They like the mobility option. They prefer a squared rectangular desk. They have a strong preference for tables. They want desks to be the same height. Student chairs to have glides, not wheels, which is an important factor. Chairs to be in the same color. And they also want alternate seating options such as balance stools or a ball or a medicine ball of some sort. So from those categories in the rankings or the ratings, I should say, we're presenting a baseline recommendation for TK through first, as well as all subsequent grade levels. So it is recommended TK through first grade students have mobile tables to interact and work with others that are primarily squared in shape. Tables are to have integrated storage options and to be the same height based off grade level. Student chairs are to be primarily the same color and design with hooks or storage for backpacks. Students to have the option to use limited alternative seating such as balance stools or wobble stools. TK and preschool shall have a hands-on focus for learning through play with age-appropriate manipulatives and opportunity to adjust to the school environment. So if we go to the next slide, we kind of see a few images of what that looks like. So we see a chair with glides, no wheels. We see a large table with wheels. We have a little bit of alternate seating in the background. And again, these are just sample images. So you can kind of guide what we're going after. There was also a focus to have individual desks in some capacity for possibly one-on-one work. And so that is also included. Next slide. For instructor and classroom furniture, based off the survey response received, kidney table is a must. Teacher desks with a drawer and file system integrated is a must. A podium is a must. And looking at podiums, there's various types of podiums across the grade levels where students are sitting on the floor, you need a really low podium, or if you're standing here, you need a high podium with possibly room for a laptop or an iPad to work from. For classroom furniture, at this grade level, a backpack storage cart is the preferred furniture item. A mobile storage cart is preferred. Shelving options such as different carts or to store materials and supplies. A calming corner is really important at this grade level, and you kind of see this trend throughout all grade levels. And number of bookcases, it was about 3.6, 3.7, but we also have to worry about the size of the classroom, and we don't want to overload it. So I put a 3 to 4 as a recommendation, and that's a summarized recommendation to the right. Next slide, please. So this image shows the classroom furniture, such as the teacher desk, storage options for materials and supplies, the kidney table, that is a big priority for all grade levels, and other types of storage such as cubbies or student storage to store their materials or projects. Next slide. Second to fifth grade, we kind of see the same trend in regards to focusing on tables and with integrated storage of some sort. Difference here is chairs with wheels attached. So again, to improve the mobility of the classroom and students and staff able to move the classroom. Next slide, please. Again, here's some more images of what that looks like, and you can see the backpack cart to the top left corner there. A variety of storage options for materials and equipment and supplies, I should say. That is also a podium that we piloted to the left there. It has the flaps of the arms down. Here we see alternate seating with individual desks. And then again, another larger image of a sample image of tables and chairs to help improve collaboration and teamwork in the classroom. Next slide, please. Teacher desks and classroom furniture kind of mirrors the same. No big changes here. Next slide, please. For the 6th through 8th grade, again, really a big focus on tables. There may be more opportunities to adjust the height of the tables to meet the students' needs. But again, it's pretty much the same standard throughout, which we're excited about, especially from a maintenance, warranty, and servicing of the furniture. And there was a high preference for calming corners for 6th through 8th grade. And so we're excited about that. Next slide, please. Again, no change for the teachers for 6th through 8th grade. Next slide. Here we get into baseline for non-typical classrooms, such as STEAM. So it is recommended that STEAM classrooms are furnished with large tables with chemical or paint and oil-resistant tops that can be used for science or art. Tables can be mobile or fixed, determined by the primary usage of the class. Student seating can be stools with back support or chairs. Students to have seating that have integrated backpack hooks. And all other classroom furnishings are to closely align with a typical classroom. And so we're working through this kind of open recommendation. And again, some STEAM programs, yes, we want wheels. Some, no, let's keep them more stationary because we're using sharp tools. I don't want a table to slide out from under a student. And so we're again, engaging with the school sites for their furniture and types. Next slide, please. Again, and these are just some sample images of tables. Again, at the upper grade level, we will have chairs with wheels, so a very mobile classroom. You see the podium here in this picture in the center of the classroom, which is what we're striving for. We don't want them to be attached to the wall anymore. We want to be able to stream to the AV components and really work the classroom and engage with the students in all corners of the classroom. Next slide, please. Here's some sample images of the STEAM programs from the wire racks, which is very, very important from what I hear to store materials and showcase as well as store student projects. A large table and work surfaces, as well as in the back corner, having more counter spaces is important and dedicated lighting and electrical for hot glue guns or small robotics or chargers. Chargers is a big push too. And I'm most excited I'm very in the garage often, these toolboxes, because I hear there's power tools in this classroom and, well, where are you storing them? Oh, it's a little cubby in this old cabinet. Oh no, we need a toolbox for you all. And so I'm excited about toolboxes and again, all mirroring what's mobile in the classroom. Next slide, please. Thank you, Luciana and Megan Duffy for their input and support for the special day classes. The focus and the recommendation for our special ed classes is that we want to mirror the general ed classes as much as possible. And so we want them to feel incorporated in the campus and have the same offerings that our general ed students have. And so when you walk by a classroom, it should look no different from other classrooms. But with that, we understand there are some different needs and priorities for our special needs students. And so with that, we want to offer tables, but we also want to have a primary desk or large workstation that students can work by themselves or with a partner or with an aide to assist them. Safety and security is a big issue, a big priority and focus. So maybe perhaps a little bit less open storage, but more closed storage that can be secured and monitored for students to engage and be safe in. There's a priority to have different seating options for students, as well as possibly a standing option for students. Again, as the needs of the classrooms is slightly different in special ed classes. All right, next slide, please. So the final portion of the project, I'll kind of just briefly touch on the pilot program and the regards to the cost, as well as the pilot for AV, and then the next steps coming up. So next slide, please. Thank you. So our pilot program, many of our pilot manufacturers, they provided discounted rates. And we're hoping that when we take the numbers across an entire school site or across 3 school sites, we hope to get that price per item down much more. And our purchasing folks and myself and Mark will continue to push on them to do that. But here's where we landed in regards to the furniture pilot cost. For the AV, we tested 3 different interactive panels, as well as 3 different types of audio-visual controls. And so we look forward to the future to present those findings and recommendation for AV. Next slide, please. The next steps will be for our facilities team and myself to really confirm the classroom, the grade levels, how's each space going to be used, and then working with our purchasing team. So we have our recommendations. Now we need to find the vendor who's gonna meet most, if not all of those recommendations, and provide the best pricing, along with warranty, along with service and customer support. Once we have those items, we will, we'll come back to the board and make the final recommendation of, here's the menu options for all grade levels, and hopefully have hard quotes so we can start ordering for this summer. With that, I pass it back to Superintendent Enna.
Assistant Superintendent.
Assistant Superintendent. I apologize.
Thank you. Okay, great. So you can see that we went through a real, very in-depth process, and in the end, I'm happy to say that we'll be offering, as Mr. Altamirano said, a menu of options. There will be some allowance for a little bit of customization while we're meeting this high standard. So if there's any questions or clarification, we'll be happy to answer them for you now.
Thank you for the presentation. I really appreciated all the effort that was clearly put into this presentation, as well as the effort that you guys took in collecting input, right, and gathering feedback. I know firsthand how hard that is to get people to submit surveys. I also thought that you were very thoughtful in analyzing the survey data, both at the macro and the micro levels, because you are correct, right? Every grade level is different. All the needs are different across the grade levels as well. I also know that furniture refresh makes a big difference, right? In creating a welcoming environment and just the overall feel of the classroom, motivating students, motivating the teachers. So very excited to see all of this happening. I have two questions for you. So in this presentation, you focused on student furniture and classroom furniture. In regards to TK and kindergarten, I am curious if there has been any discussion around like pretend play furniture, right? Because at that age level, we do want to be developmentally appropriate and making sure that they have opportunities for pretend play. So things like play, like a play kitchen or things of that sort. So have you guys discussed any of that?
Yeah, I can take this question. For TK, we have been expanding TK for a number of years, and as we've opened classes, we have actually been upgrading the furniture and the materials in the classroom through the expansion. Then we went back and upgraded for classrooms that were already in existence. So we've already established, and this was along with the TK teachers with their input, the time we've established a standard for what TK classrooms look like. So kind of aside from the rest of this input, TK is a little bit different, and preschool, the SDC preschool takes into account those things, but also the needs of the students in the classroom. So yes, the TK classroom upgrades and the furniture that we've already purchased and standardized also include kitchens and just different areas of the classroom, that Lego tables, block tables, these different developmentally appropriate furniture items that allow students to play. We want there to be space in the classroom for not just them sitting at tables and sitting at the carpet, but having learning spaces where they can spread out, open up their toys. We've also given an allocation for all of the TK teachers to buy non-consumable materials that, you know, in different classrooms, we don't know exactly what they come in with or what they've already been collecting over the years. So we want them to be able to purchase if they need puzzles and puppets and food for the kitchen and dolls and things like that. So so they all received a funding allocation to, you know, shop at Lakeshore, wherever, to get some of those items as well. So those are all already part of our standard TK classroom.
Perfect. And then in terms of when the classrooms will be getting the new furniture, is this something that's happening all at once, or will the schools be getting the new furniture as they get modernized?
Yes, good question. So the primary route will be when they get modernized. as we pull back all the furniture from the space, redo all the interiors, that's the most appropriate time to put new furniture into place. For the school sites that are a little bit later on in the timeline, we're looking to, well, can we replace the carpet now? The carpet is a high standard in my book and my experience. And so I'm confident the carpet will survive any type of modernization we do. So Santa Teresa, Parkview, Frost Indigo, we're looking to replace their carpet a little bit sooner and replace the furniture sooner.
On one of your page, it lists 25 classrooms when you're doing the high, low, and average modern cost. Is that how many how many classrooms? Is it all of them? Or as you said, you would be replacing the furniture as we modernize?
So this year we're modernizing Herman, Christopher, and Stipe. So as part of the modernization, we'll replace their furniture entirely.
Entirely,
And that
okay.
includes RSP rooms, that will include the library, which we didn't show in the presentation.
Hmm.
And to a certain degree, some of the admin spaces or the lobbies as well.
Did the librarians, I didn't see that input in here.
The library spaces are a little bit unique per
Mhm.
site, and so we're evaluating that with our design team.
Mm.
How can we best take what they have, what do they really need, and how can we change the space? Some of our spaces have seating wells, and we're going to be filling in those wells soon, and so that's really going to change the flow of the room. And so libraries still need a little bit more time as we're working on those designs.
Okay, thank you.
The question is, as far as what you're already seeing in the classrooms, are there classrooms now that do not need modernization, that are, the desks are sufficient and they don't need the higher upgrade? And
yeah,
is that even
there's-
something that we're looking at, or we're just across the board, since we have the monies to do this? This is something that we have decided upon? It's just,
To clarify, Associate Superintendent Evans' comment earlier, so as we modernize the school site, some of the furniture will be in decent shape or in good shape. And so the focus is to really bring the entire interior finishes and update and upgrade them. Before we surplus all the furniture and before we ask other regions to donate or they'll accept donations, we'll first internally pass on that furniture. Here's the classroom. We have 30 of these chairs. Do any other school sites would like that furniture or will need that furniture? So there's opportunity that Christopher's furniture, the best classrooms or the best pieces may make their way to other school sites as interim furniture before they get modernized. For certain schools, there have been various grants that teachers have went out and sought. And so those furniture, we're evaluating, does this fit the model of what we want to teach, and who owns this furniture really? Is it the teacher who filled out the grant? And if they move to each classroom, is this furniture moving with them? We want to make a standardized across all classrooms so that I know when something breaks, I can know who to call, what piece it is, and for it to be replaced. And so the goal is really to push the new furniture out. So again, we're all on the same warranty timeline or warranty, manufacturer, and serviceability.
Do we buy surplus pieces to store in the warehouse in case we need to switch out, or?
We always account for a certain amount of additional usage. So we will buy a certain amount of additional chairs, additional tables, but it'll be pretty finite and it will be stored at the school site. So they have it on site somewhere.
Okay, thank you.
All right, do we have any public comments? Okay. Any further board discussion? All right. Thank you, Gabe, and Assistant Superintendent Anna. All right, the last information item, 7.3, OGSD California Dashboard Results 2024. Assistant Superintendent Anna.
Okay, great. All right, thank you, President Yu, members of the board. Tonight, I'm presenting along with colleagues from our team in educational services on the results of the California dashboard. The dashboard is California's system of accountability and support that uses multiple measures to assess how we're meeting the needs of students. So the dashboard is comprised of both state and local indicators. The local indicators listed here are the results of a district self-assessment that's based on a rubric, and those are reported to the board in June. The state indicators are based on the 23-24 school year data, and the results were released in December. So state indicators are the focus of tonight's presentation, and the state indicators that pertain to our K-8 district are academic performance, and we use the state testing, the SBAC, ELA, and math results for that, English learner progress, chronic absenteeism, and suspension rates. The other two, college and career and graduation rates, are not indicators that apply to a K-8 district. When we review dashboard data, our ESD team and our school teams reflect on our strategies and actions that are outlined in the LCAP and in their SIPSAs. So all of this information, along with our dashboard data for each school site, can be found on the website that is here, California School, casschooldashboard.org. Next. I don't need to say next slide. So just so you can see a visual of when you go to the platform for the dashboard, this is what it looks like. And all of the indicators that I just mentioned are listed on the left. You can scroll through them. And also there's the availability to drill down to student groups. So results are not only for the overall population, but also for student groups that are reported. And the student groups, the names of the student groups, that's what the state calls them. So for the purposes of consistency, we'll use the same student group labels. They're listed by race and ethnicity and by special programs for which the students are identified. So for race and ethnicity, we have student groups reported on our African American, American Indian or Native American, Asian, Filipino, Hispanic, Pacific Islander, white, or two or more races. And then the special programs are English learners, long-term English learners, and that is a new student group for this year. Students with disabilities, socioeconomically disadvantaged student, homeless, and foster youth. To protect the anonymity of students, the results are not displayed if the overall number of students is below a threshold. So all our student groups with 30 or more students all have dashboard results, with the exception of foster youth and homeless youth. At the LEA level, we have to have 15 or more, but at the school level, they do need 30 or more. So students within, if we have between 11 and 29 students, they will have results displayed, but there won't be a status level or a color. And I'll explain the colors in a moment. And then any student group that has 10 or fewer, there won't be any information displayed. It'll just say no results, just to protect, again, the anonymity and the confidentiality of those few students. Okay, so new this year, as I mentioned, long-term English learners or LTELs have not previously had dashboard results, and now they do. And then also new this year is the results of the California Science Test, or the CAST. Those are displayed on the dashboard. For information purposes only this year, there's no status assigned. We won't see a color for our CAST testing. The dashboard results are not based on performance alone. Important to note that they consider both performance and performance status and change from the previous year. And so the image that you see here is known as the 5x5. Each indicator has its own 5x5 with cut points for each status level and each change level. So the dashboard color is determine where the status and the change levels intersect, as you can see in the image here. So the exception to this, and there's one exception where there's fewer than 150 students in the areas of chronic absenteeism and suspension, the grid becomes a 3x3. So just a little point to note that that function actually limits large swings in change data that just a few students could create. So they have that sort of in place to prevent that from happening. So before we get into the results of our academic indicators, I just want to explain the process for determining the results a little bit further. And so the distance from standard is really what we're looking at. When we report the SBAC assessments, usually when we're talking about CASP scores or SBAC scores, we're talking about a percentage of students who are at or above standard. But here, the performance level is set not by the percentage, but it's the average distance from standard according to the scale score. So each student's assessment is scored and their distance from standard is calculated based on how many points above or below a determined cut point that's considered for that standard. Okay. So just to visualize that a little bit, here we have the scores for ELA, the scale score. So the scores are not on a 0 to 100. Just to complicate it a little further, it's not a 0 to 100 scale. It's a scale somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 points for the assessment. And the cut point for the at standard varies by grade level. And it also is different for each of the different assessments. So this is just an example of ELA. So you can see the levels that students score if they got a level. They are not met standard, nearly met standard or exceeded. Their score fell within that range to give them that score. And so just to exemplify that, here's a student who is a 5th grader, and on the math, the range is between 2,528, 2,578. So the cut point that's determined for the 5th grade math is that 2,578. This student scored 2,505. So they had, their distance from standard was -23. Okay, so what does that mean for the ELA 5x5? So if you take all the students' distance from standards, we average them out. So let's just say that the average student, everybody got that. So the average was distance from standard is -23 points for ELA. That would be considered low performing, and that's the column on the left. But depending on the change from the previous year, it could be orange or yellow. However, with an average -23 distance from standard score in math, that would be considered medium, and the color could either be yellow or green. So just to point out that it is different for each one, what we're looking at. And then science also has its own 5x5, but since science isn't reporting, we're only in our first year, there will not be a color because there's no change from the previous year. So now I'd like to introduce, coming up to the podium is Dr. Patricia Mondragon Doty, who's our Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment, and she's going to review the results for the academic indicators.
Good evening, everyone. So right here we have the English language arts results, and no, it's a little bit difficult to see, but
I'm sorry, can you speak up a little bit?
oh, sure. Is that
Thank
better?
you. Yes.
Okay. One huge highlight is that our homeless population increased by 2 levels. So I just wanted to go ahead and share that with you. Now, the no performance color, there we have the American Indian population and foster youth, and that is because there's a small number, just like Assistant Superintendent Anna mentioned. For the orange level, There we have the subgroups of African American, English learners, Hispanic, Pacific Islanders, and socioeconomic disadvantaged students. And we maintained color for long-term English learners, which is a huge uplift to make sure that we are supporting our long-term English language learners. Just like Assistant Superintendent mentioned, it hadn't been one of the groups highlighted in the California dashboard. So that is a really great thing to have. But as you can see, there's a lot of work to do because in the red, we have that group and also students with disability. Overall, though, if you look on the left side, we did maintain the color in orange. We did dip down, and then you compare it to the state. So again, there's a lot of interventions through our multi-tiered support systems that we won't go deep into right now, but just wanted to go ahead and share just the overall English language arts results. For math, we increased a level with our homeless population. Then in the orange level, we have African Americans, English learners, Hispanic, Pacific Islanders, and socioeconomic disadvantaged students. In the red, long-term English learners and students with disabilities. So again, a lot of reflective conversations as to what we need to do and push towards supporting our students. There we have also the comparison with the state. And of course, no performance level, same groups, and the green levels as well. I wanted to also highlight that Asian, Filipino, 2 or more races, and white. Another huge win for teachers. As a former 5th grade teacher who used to assess our students in science, I'm so excited to finally have science results in the California dashboard. Again, this is the first year. It's comparing us to the state, but it still does not have the different levels like the previous ones, but that is forthcoming. LP, English Learner Progress Indicator. For the LPAC, what the English language learner students take, there are 4 levels, but with LP, it is expanded to 6 different levels. That helps us really hone in as to how the students are progressing. Why? Because we have more levels and they're smaller ranges. So that's why you are able to see that levels 2 and 3 are divided into sub-levels. Okay, if we can move to the next one. So again, more reflective conversations, because as you can see, we are, there are higher percentage of students decreasing a level. We also have a higher number of students still maintaining, but again, we do see the dip from the first year being reported to the other one, that the students, there is a higher percentage of students decreasing. When we're looking at comparison between us and the state, we have maintained the color, but now we do have another report of long-term English learners that is where we do not want to see our students. And that is my presentation. I'm going to send it over to Assistant Superintendent Anna.
Thank you, Dr. Mondragon-Doughty. Before we move on to the next indicator, I want to mention that we are looking closely at our supportive measures for students who are in the red level. So the ESD team will be providing a mid-year update on our LCAP goals and actions at the next board meeting, and we will review specific LCAP metrics and specific actions that our district is taking to provide supportive measures for students. But just to highlight a few things that are in place to support and accelerate students. So first, our new math curriculum explicitly integrates strategies for developing language skills and math understanding for our multilingual learners. And it also has universal design for learning and differentiation built into every lesson to meet the needs of neurodivergent learners and for learners with disabilities. So in math, there's lots of supports. And as you know, we're providing professional development in math, and the curriculum is being implemented, is newly being implemented. We also have English learner teacher partners or coaches for our English learner population. They're delivering professional development district-wide, working with teachers on in the district on SEAL strategies within the comprehensive approach to learning. So content, literacy, and language, building those all together to deliver specific strategies within the literacy block and the content blocks. And also ramping up small group instruction in the classroom that targets that tier 2 explicit gaps in foundational skills, using our core language arts curriculum, CKLA, as well as supplemental materials to fill in those gaps for foundational skills. So those are a few highlights, and now I'm going to pass this on to our Director of Student, Family, and Community Services, Dr. Genevieve Dorsey, who's going to present on the engagement and climate indicators. Dr. Dorsey.
Thank you, Assistant Superintendent Anna. So first I wanted to share that attendance is considered a measure of student engagement. And so at the district, we do measure attendance rates, like daily attendance rates. But on the California School Dashboard, the quantifiable data that they use for attendance is chronic absenteeism. So that is the measure of students who miss 10% or more of the school days. So when I'm talking about percentages, that's the percentage of students who have missed 10% or more of school days. So like 18 days in a year. So I'm ready for the next slide. So I'm very pleased to present that our chronic absenteeism rate decreased by nearly 5% last year. All of our student groups either maintained their color or improved their rating on the California School Dashboard. One group I'd like to point out there is the Native American or Indigenous student population. Here it's the American Indian population. While there's no performance indicated there, our total population, because our total population is fewer than 30 students, like Assistant Superintendent Anna explained, this student group's chronic absenteeism rate in our district declined 30.8% to 7.7% in our district. So we're pretty proud of that. Two other notable improvements include our foster youth populations, whose chronic absenteeism rate declined 25.6%, and our unhoused, and on this slide is homeless student population, their chronic absenteeism decreased by 21.2%. And so this is showing significant improvement in engagement for these really traditionally underserved groups. So we're pretty proud of those results. Next slide. So next I'll share the dashboard's ratings for suspension rate, and suspension rate is sort of the major quantifiable metric that the state uses for reporting on conditions and climate in the school. Thank you. So again, I'm happy to share that we moved from an orange rating in 2023 to a yellow rating in 2024 with a 2.7% of Oak Grove students being suspended at least one day. So that's the metric there, is the percentage of students who have been suspended at least one day. You may notice that we also have a lower suspension rate than the state average, even though our color doesn't quite match the state average, right? So here you can see student groups that improved in one or more color bands. So with a +1, that means they moved up one color band. So from orange to yellow, or from yellow to green, or 2 color bands. So for example, our foster youth moved from red to yellow. I'd also like to note that no Native American or Indigenous students were suspended in 2024. And even though our long-term English learners weren't reported last year, we did show a significant decline in suspension for that group with a 3.1% And so now back to Assistant Superintendent Anna to discuss accountability systems. Thank you.
All right. Just again, we're looking closely at our supportive measures for student groups who are in the red level. And for the almost 3% of Black African American students who are in the district, the dashboard results showed a disproportionate suspension rate. Our supportive measures to responding to student behavior, which are aligned with at the LCAP, are working to decrease this rate, and we are currently at 2.1%, which is 6% below where we were at the end of last year. So some highlights are Dr. Dorsey is working with a team to develop a behavior matrix that will align the discipline actions across the district and provide clear guidance on other means of correction outside of suspension. And also restorative practices is something that we've been training teachers. We trained over 80 teachers last year and administrators. And this year we have 5 cohorts of teachers and administrators being trained in restorative practices, as well as IAs and noon duties will also be trained in this practice. So now I want to share a little bit about the state and federal accountability systems related to the dashboard data. So the first one is differentiated assistance, and this is the state's accountability system that's led by county offices and supports districts to identify the problem of practice and come up with effective solutions. So the criteria are there, and I'm proud to announce that we did not meet eligibility requirements for 2024, and so we are not in differentiated assistance for next school year. Our federal accountability system, there's kind of 2 components of it. One is comprehensive support and improvement, and the other is additional targeted support and improvement. There's also an aspect of that that's just TSI, or targeted support and improvement. So for CSI, this is regarding the results of the all student group. And when a school or a district has all red indicators, or all red but one, or they have 5 or more indicators and a majority of them are red, and they qualify for CSI eligibility, which involves a comprehensive plan. There's some funding allocated to that. Christopher Elementary School was eligible for CSI last year, and they successfully exited CSI status. And not only that, they went from red to green for both suspension rates and English learner progress indicator, from orange to yellow in math, from red to orange for ELA, and maintained yellow for chronic absenteeism. So huge gains for Christopher School, and I wanted to call that out specifically. And last year we had 6 schools that were identified for ATSI, and this year we have 3. So again, I look forward to continuing the conversation and reporting out our progress towards our LCAP goals and the actions that we're taking to continuously improve our outcomes for our learners at next month's regular board meeting. If you have any questions about our dashboard results at this time, I'm happy to answer them now or in follow-up communication. Thank you.
I have a quick question, just on the definition of long-term English learners. What meets that criteria?
That's a great question. Thank you. It means that they have been identified as English learners for 6 or more years. So they haven't reclassified in that time.
And then one slide, I was a little confused. It had all students on their double. Under chronic absenteeism, slide 22, it has no student groups in red, and then it has no student groups in blue.
So that means that we didn't have any student groups in that status level. So no student groups were red. All of the student groups are either orange, yellow, or green, or no performance color.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I don't have any questions, just a couple of comments. One, yay for exiting out of differentiated assistance, very exciting. And also to Christopher for exiting out of ASTI and CSI. Kudos to you all. I know how hard that is to do. I'm also happy to see that improvements were made in the chronic absenteeism rate, and I hope that we continue to maintain that and to continue to improve even further. And then I'm just looking forward to hearing more about the supports in math and ELA for the student populations that are in red, as well as in orange. At the next meeting as a part of the LCAP presentation. So thank you, Assistant Superintendent Enna and your staff for that presentation. Do we have any public comments? Okay, any further board discussion? All right, that moves us along to correspondence and board discussion. So we may now hear from board members regarding correspondence from individuals and or organizations regarding district programs or services. At this time, board members may also report on meetings attended or other related district matters. And board members may also report on committee assignments. We can go down the row or you guys can just volunteer.
Sure. I had a quick update on the state budget as I was assigned as to the legislative committee. Superintendent, would you like to give your supplemental information or would you like me to include it in my update? Okay. First, the governor came out with his proposed budget, and as we know, the budget changes significantly over the time that the legislature has to work with his initial proposals, and they submit their own, and then there's a conference committee. So what is initially proposed may not end up at the end. But at the moment, the governor has proposed that Prop 98 funding for schools and community colleges is projected to be $118.9 billion, a slight decrease from prior years due to revenue adjustments. The per pupil funding will increase to $18,918 or $24,764 when you receive federal and other state contributions. Look back at my notes. The per pupil funding is a statewide average and it varies by district. In Oak Grove School District, we receive about $14,300 in per pupil state funding. The May revision, the government will submit updated budget proposal with, revised revenue forecasts. New investments, the governor proposes $2.5 billion for a cost of living adjustment. This is actually ratcheted down from what he had proposed initially. The initial proposal was 2.43. It's 2.93, and now it's down to 2.43. This is an increase of the local control funding formula and other state programs. It doesn't get distributed evenly to all districts in the state, and there's concentration fundings. There's also declining enrollment, which will impact our state revenues, offsetting some of the COLA growth that we had. The other highlight of the budget is there is an increase for TK to reduce the student to teacher ratio. It was 12-1. It's moving to 10-1. He's proposing a $1.5 billion allocation to do that, to ensure that we have quality education for our younger learners. And some of the warnings that they've given is that there's global financial instability, market volatility, and potential conflicts, as we know, with federal policies that could impact our revenues before the May budget proposal. The budget will go through the reiterative process with the legislature, and the final approval won't happen until June. So we'll have additional updates as we go along. Thank you.
So at this time, for the DIB and the Wellness Committee, we still have a March 6th and February 24th date to meet. And I've been able to look through some of the past notes. So just looking forward to attending those. just adding that for the March 13th meeting.
As for myself, before winter break, I was able to do a Ledesma site visit with the exec team. So thank you to all of you for letting me join. It was great to see, high student engagement, just meeting all the teachers and seeing all the students. And then today, I attended the Student Advisory Committee meeting, as Superintendent Tritus had mentioned early on. That was great as well. And then the only thing I have left to say is January 29th is Lunar New Year, which is it's the biggest holiday for several Asian cultures. So I do want to wish our Asian community a happy Lunar New Year. It is a 14-day celebration, so it will last until February 12th. All right, with that, may I have a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn meeting?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the regular board meeting on January 16th, 2025 is adjourned at 8:24 p.m. Thank you, everybody.
Good night.